good news and bad news, and you might be able to look at this from different points of view depending on where you sit. But while all of this stuff is interesting and made different because of our ability to collect data, political parties have been doing this for a long time. We have always collected data, or political parties have always collected data on who people are, where they live, how they vote, whether or not they went out to vote. What's changed in the last 30 years, since I got involved in political campaigning, is our ability to store and accumulate and manage and respond to and react with data and deliver targeted messages in different ways. And I'm here speaking in a couple of different voices. You'll notice that my pronouns might change a little bit because I started my career working for a political party. I started campaigning using a database system that was at the time really sophisticated, because we used to use index cards, and actually evolved into a different kind of job, into a job where I now work with organizations who are trying to connect with the public, connect with people on political issues. They aren't necessarily trying to move people to vote in a particular way, but they're trying to build support for their cause and get people excited about their cause and get people engaged in their cause and voting on the issues that they care about, as Mario was talking about in his graphs about the kinds of things people are interested in and care about versus the kind of things people actually consider when they're about to vote, and where those things intersect. So I'm gonna switch voice a little bit probably because it's a hard habit to break, but taking that kind of old school political communications that campaigners used to do, political parties used to do, where they would go out and find out who was going to vote for them, and their virtual sole purpose from the beginning of the campaign to the end of the campaign was simply to get those people out to the polls on election day. Now it's much more micro-targeting. They're trying to say to an individual, what is it that matters to you, and how do I get my particular message about the thing that matters to you right to you? And the Obama campaign and the Romney campaigns are doing this exceptionally well. There was a really great story that PBS did about maybe just a week ago, and I think I tweeted it earlier in the week with the at Make Media Democracy Day Twitter ID that looked at all the tools those campaigns are using to talk to people. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, or you haven't seen it yet, go have a look, because they're doing exactly the things Colin was talking about. And they show it right on the camera. The head of data for Ohio, for Barack Obama, is sitting there with her iPad showing the reporter how he can sign up and go knock on doors and talk to voters about what they care about. But all of that still has to happen. All that stuff is going on, and I think Colin's right. It's important that it get that some light gets shone on that people actually look at it. I didn't know until I read the first page of Colin's report that political parties were actually not required to follow privacy laws. So that was the first. I've been having some conversations with colleagues about data collection and what the Obama campaign does and what the Romney campaign does, and where things are headed here in BC and in Canada. And I thought that we were needing to comply if we were going to do some of the things that we were thinking about doing. I thought we needed to comply with the privacy laws. And yet this morning, read Colin's report and didn't realize that that wasn't true. So I think that there is definitely a place for improving the privacy regulations of people who are accumulating a lot of information about individuals. And we have to improve the ability for folks to know exactly what's going on. Having said that, as I said at the beginning, political parties have been doing this for a long time, and it may not be a USB stick with 5,000 people's names, addresses, phone numbers, and voting history that have been exposed, but certainly there have been stories in the last 15 years, 20 years, of some marked list, some list that says who's voting for who, ends up in a dumpster somewhere. And a reporter gets a hold of it and tracks down where it came from, and somebody's in trouble. I mean, these things have actually happened, and people do get in trouble, but it's only a small amount of attention for a certain period of time. And I think that the work that Colin is doing and others needs to actually bring more attention to some of this. What I do in what the company that I work for does around political message development, I think, is another piece of this puzzle, and we're very conscious of the fact that it's not just about the one-on-one targeted political communication. It's also about how are you developing and crafting messages that are connecting with people in ways that are activating their interest in certain topics. And in our world, sometimes that means putting more attention towards how you construct your particular position on an issue so that it actually captures the imagination of people who are not thinking about this 24/7. And it's a big problem for me as both a marketer and a progressive to work with clients to figure that out. People are not as plugged into stuff as we are. There is research out there now that actually says that for most people, talking about politics or political issues actually shuts down the social part of their brains. So those of us who are engaged on these issues on a daily basis, the social part of our brains gets activated by these political conversations. We're happy to be here all day today, exploring and having these conversations. It may surprise you to know that most people would find this painful. Right? That is a problem we have to deal with. That is a unavoidable consequence of how the human brain works, and we cannot change that. So we have to find ways to talk about our issues and bring the most relevant pieces of our issues forward to people in a way that they engage and that they find the interest in it that makes a difference for them, that makes a difference for the people around them, that gets them excited and passionate about a piece of it, not necessarily the whole ideology, right? Like we don't need, if we're environmentalists and we are trying to change how something happens somewhere, I fill in a blank, we don't necessarily have to have everybody on side with every piece of what we believe in order to accomplish our goal in that particular place. In order to grow public support, in order to increase public opinion on a particular issue, we don't have to have people subscribing to our entire ideology. And the truth is, those what were those middle people called?
Mistrustful middle.
The mistrustful middle is never going to. Partly because they don't see the world in those ideological constructs, but also partly because it isn't interesting for them, right? So we need to find the piece, the thing that actually gets them excited, that we can tap into, that we can drive up support, that we can make them come to us. And that role of emotion in political discourse, in political communication, in how people respond to things. You saw the Mitt Romney story where he was talking about what was he talking about? Being kind of a soccer dad and families, and people were getting kind of warm and tingly. I actually found I've never gotten kind of goosebumps out of Mitt Romney speech before, and I was kind of warming up. Oh, Mitt Romney's sounding kind of good here. What's going on? And then, of course, he made that other comment. Well, he was trying to, instead of do what most politicians tend to do, which is talk down to people. Okay, here I am, I'm going to tell you something. He was trying to take the voice of that mistrustful middle and amplify it, give it volume, right, back to those people, right? He was trying to do that. And he did that okay at that point. But then he went too far, right, in their minds. Because I assume most of the people who were giving those reactions on that bar were the mistrustful middle. Yeah, that's who was activating those bars, going up and down on that thing. So he went too far. He didn't understand the nature of these people's experience well enough to know that as soon as he started talking about, you lost that good love and feeling, basically, that you had when you voted for Obama. He didn't understand them well enough to know that as soon as he went there, they switched off. They were annoyed. They were irritated. Their brains, social center shut down, and they were uncomfortable, right? And that's the kind of thing that when we're talking about public issues, when we're talking about public policy, when we're talking about issue communications, when we're talking about politics, even if it's partisan politics, probably worse when it's partisan politics, people's brains don't engage. They don't want to participate. And it's finding those things that are going to tap into the heart more so than the minds of people, finding the things that are going to get them in a gut way react positively to you rather than intellectual arguments, get them to come to you for those reasons. Those are the things that are shifting the game in political and issue communications. There is a history of accomplishing that. Medicare did not happen because somebody said Medicare is the right thing to do. It happened because the people who campaigned for it figured out that from a dollar and cents point of view, that's what made sense for the most number of people, and they convinced people to do it on that basis. They weren't doing it because of the principle of Medicare and the shared Canadian values. They didn't exist. They had to create them. They had to build them up. They had to make them become the majority and make it become something that we all agreed was the best for everybody. So having that culture and having that foundation, but bringing in the communications that actually creates the stories, that builds the momentum, that makes people want to do the things that we think are the right thing to do, but not everyone is necessarily with us, is a piece of the political communications that I think we're at a tipping point on, that we're about to get better at, I hope. And I think the problem is the right has been stinking good at it for way too long, and the left has to get way better at it way faster. And I don't mean mislead or lie. All of this can be done authentically, honestly, with integrity. All of that can happen, but we have to get way better at tapping into the emotions that make people want to do what's good for more people at the end of the day. And that trend in political communications, I think, can serve us well, as long as we solve the privacy problem.